I don't know how much of it is my fault. I like to think a lot of it is. Yeah, we hold the world record.
We hold the world record?
Yeah, we hold the world record walleye.
I didn't know that.
I've gotten more hate over releasing that 12-pound walleye. I've gotten 2 a.m. drunk texts from people from Canada. I can't believe you freaking put that fish back. That would have been, I'd have eaten that fish and got her up with you. I can't believe that's such a dumb thing to do. What were you thinking? The Talisman boat ramp on the first warm Saturday of the year, when I launched my boat at 10 a.m., I counted 47 trailers in that parking lot.
Dude.
47.
Everybody wants to catch a walleye.
As it hits my hand, you gotta be freaking kidding me. I take a half a step forward, I swing the hook. I did a 4-pound walleye. And that fish had that hook 2/3 of the way down his face.
All right, we are here with Clayton from Red's Guide Service. Clayton has been a guide in and around Northwest Arkansas and just the general Ozarks region for the past 10 years since you were about 16, right?
Yes, sir.
You started young and you came straight out of the gate swinging.
Yeah.
Just eager and ready to go. And you specialize in trout, smallmouth, and walleye, right?
Yes, sir.
So today, being just the time of the year that it is and what's going on right now, I really wanted to talk to you about walleye fishing and how people can go out and do that, because you see it all over Facebook, you see it all over Instagram, and it's like, what are these prehistoric fish? They're so cool looking, and you hear that they're just incredible to eat.
Yep.
And I guarantee there's a lot of people listening who are like, yeah, I want to get in on that. So first, welcome to the podcast, man. We're excited to have you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And we're excited to learn about you. Is there anything else I didn't say about you that you want the people to know?
If you missed anything, I'm sure it'll come out at some point.
There you go. There you go. So let's just dive in. Let's get straight to it.
Cool.
Walleye fishing. Why is it so popular? Like, what about Northwest Arkansas and the Ozarks kind of make it to where people really want to chase after this fish and put some walleye in the boat?
So, main thing that we offer compared to everywhere else in walleye country is that our average size walleye is substantially larger than most other places in stereotypical walleye country, right? Like Minnesota, Wisconsin, the Dakotas, Nebraska's getting kind of well known. And don't get me wrong, there are some of those lakes that, man, they put up monster fish day in and day out. But if you look at, some of the really common places that show up on Facebook, Instagram, the average size walleye that people are catching through the ice this time of year, especially, is 14, 15 inches.
Okay.
And they're all frozen, right? Like they're sitting on 2 or 3 feet of ice right now. And unless you're just drunk, nobody wants to do that.
Yeah.
It gets pretty boring pretty quick. And we have open water. I mean, I'm wearing flip-flops in February.
Yeah. You're already like pretty sun tanned up, and just looking at you, you've already got a good bit of sun.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of that's windburn too this time of year.
Oh, okay. Fair enough.
Which hurts way more than sunburn, dude.
Yeah.
But so a lot of those guys are coming down just to get away from the ice. They come down here and they realize they can come down here more affordably, less time on the road, and catch bigger fish. I mean, our average fish this time of year, looking at 20 inches. I guess when this airs, it'll be 22, 23.
Okay.
So I'll just, for January, your average fish is going to be 18, 19 inches.
Okay.
And they got to be 18 inches to keep. March, February, you're looking at 20, 21 inches. And then March, you're looking at 23, 24 inches.
Now, are you saying they grow that big?
No.
In that amount of time, or that's just the fish that you're catching?
That's what I was going to ask. Like,
Okay.
Are they growing an inch a month? Or
No. So the way that works, walleye are similar to salmon in the fact that they run up the river. They go to the same gravel bar that they were spawned from to spawn.
Whoa.
At least that's I think Wisconsin DNR is the one that put that report out.
Okay.
Arkansas has very little information on walleye because we don't, even though we hold the world record, we don't have that many. Yeah, we hold the world record.
We hold the world record?
Yeah, we hold the world record walleye.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, Drews Ferry Lake.
No way.
Yeah, from the Little Red River, which is the tailwater of Drews Ferry.
Yeah.
26 and change. I don't remember exactly. 26-12, I think.
Wow. That little river puts out some world records.
Dude,
That's not
no
the only
joke.
world record in that river.
No,
Because the brown.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that
Well,
was
at least it was.
Yeah, that was back in the day. That's
Yeah.
been broken, but
Yeah.
yeah.
But I had no idea.
I didn't either.
Yeah.
Northwest Arkansas. The Ozarks hold the world record walleye.
Yep.
Technically,
unreal.
Little Red would be Central Arkansas.
Fair. We're going to call it the
Yeah,
Ozarks
that's
because of the Ozark
correct.
podcast.
It is the Ozarks.
Yeah.
You're 100% right. And how big was it? Sorry. How big was that fish?
26 and change. I don't remember. I think it was 26.12, but it was 26 and change.
Dang.
And then we hold the world record freshwater striper.
Okay.
And that came out of little known fact. Everybody thinks it came out of Beaver. Kinda. Came out of the Beaver tailwaters.
Oh.
It was caught 100 yards downstream of Hausman Boat Ramp.
Wow.
And I know the dude who netted it. Got to guide him one day. So I've heard that story firsthand. So that was pretty cool.
That's awesome.
Anyway, so walleye come up the river and they come up in waves. So that first they tend to migrate around. You'll hear it's the moon phase, and that's kind of the easiest way to keep track of it.
Okay.
But more accurately, it's the daylight hours. So the moon phase will change year to year by 7 to 10 days, is what I'm told by people smarter than me.
Okay.
The daylight hours does not really, 1 or 2 days. So those walleye come up in waves. And so January, you get all those, we call them young of the year. They're not actually yearlings. They're 3-year-old. Walleye don't reach sexual maturity until their 3rd year, roughly.
Okay.
That's 17 to 18 inches.
Okay.
So similar to a 16-year-old kid, the first time he sees his girlfriend take her shirt off, right? Like as soon as that moment approaches, they're like, "Yeah,
puberty's full on." Right?
Yeah, right, yeah." So they come up the river way before everything else, and they're here for it, right? Like they're up here. They move miles a day. They're focused.
And that's what you're catching in January.
Yes,
they're the first ones out. They're like,
exactly.
We're going.
Yep.
Okay, so it's like in turkey hunting. It's like the young Jake who's like eager and ready to go. Like,
yeah,
it's time, and I'm going early.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. So you'll see those young fish. They'll come up. I'm talking 5-6 degrees before everything else. Which this time of year, 5 or 6 degrees is a lot. Typically, you'll see the walleye bite really pick up about 46 degrees. When that water temperature hits 46 and stays at 46, you'll see that bite start. I started catching walleye at 41 degrees this year.
Okay.
But it's those young of the year, just they're up there fast.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what you're catching in January.
Okay.
February, around the full moon of February, you kind of get that next wave of them, right? Those are your 21 to 23, maybe 24 inchers. With every wave, you'll get a few big females. But typically they move up in size class. So there's about a 3-inch gap. If you got a 20-inch school, a school of 20-inch fish, you'll have 19s to 21s in that school.
Okay.
But there's always that fish to make the guide the liar, right? Like there's always going to be that random fish.
The anomaly.
But as a general whole, they move up in that size class because they're kind of the same age, so they're moving up at the same time.
And when you say move up, just real quick, to you're saying like they're in the lake, right? And they're in the deep spots in the lake, and they're holding down low. And when they come up to spawn, they're coming into what would it be, like the headwaters or wherever?
Yes, sir.
The river pours into the top of the lake.
Yep, correct. So they're migrating.
Yeah.
They are technically they're technically a migratory fish.
Okay.
So they make that run up the river. It's a great example. If you look at my social media, we caught a 12-pound walleye a week ago Saturday. Big old 28.25 inches long, 18.5-inch girth. I've never seen walleye.
That's a fatty.
Dude, she was so full of eggs.
Dang.
We caught an 8-pounder. I say we, one of my guide buddies was running a trip for me. So his boat caught an 8-pounder the day before, 100 yards away from where I caught that 12-pounder out of my boat. But then we haven't really seen any other big fish.
Okay.
We've seen some really quality fish. We've seen some 25, 26-inch fish, but we haven't seen those like really big fish.
Yeah, right.
So those are, I think, in my opinion, and this is not factual, this is just 10 years of doing it. I think every wave, these early waves, I think they have 4 or 5 females, those big females that move up with the stool. You fish that same stool on when you're on the water 6 days a week, like I am.
Mm-hmm.
You fish it long enough, you'll catch it.
Yeah, you fit just what we're doing. So these fish are moving up to a staging area. So, kind of the staging area that we have on the White River Arm, and this is fairly normal for everywhere in the Ozarks, but specifically the White River Arm, and I would even say the James River. You're looking for areas where you've still got deep water, where the temperature's not fluctuating a lot, right? Because these fish they're moving up, but they're not quite ready to spawn yet. These are pre-spawn fish. And this time of year, the weather can fluctuate so much that they want some 17 to 25 foot deep, kind of that deep channel where it's like, oh, I feel that cold front coming. I'm going to go down deep.
Yeah.
And that trap can do its trap.
Yeah,
and
right.
I'll come back up.
They've
later.
got options to go a little bit deeper.
So you're looking for that channel next to a gravel hump or timber, something like humps are about the best thing. What it allows them to do, those things will get up there in the evening or low light conditions in the shallow water, and they'll hunt for shad, creek chubs, whatever bait fish is in there. So that's kind of where we're looking for those staging areas. When they get on that staging area, they will hold there for week and a half, 2 weeks. And so for a guide like myself who's on the water 6 days a week, as soon as I see one fish on that staging area, yep, in the next 24 hours, this thing's going to load up.
You're staying in that spot.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So for the next 6 to 10 days, I will literally spend an 8-hour guide trip in a 400-yard radius.
Yeah.
And we just work that stool over. And it's one of those.
That's just because it's one deep spot. Like that's the only thing that's making it a staging area is not necessarily distance or anything like that. It's
Correct.
just the right type of water, the right type of temperature, I guess. And then
So water is important. I would say, to be a little bit more specific, you got the right idea, but to be a little bit more specific, I think it's the right type of bottom structure.
okay.
So the two things that a walleye needs to spawn is pea gravel and current. Some of these staging areas where you get a little bit closer up to kind of what you'd consider the beaver tailwaters, they have both of those things. So some of these staging areas also double as a spawning area. Just because there's no need for those fish. They've got everything they need there. Why run up another 10 miles if they don't have to?
Yeah.
They've got food. They've got deep water to pre-spawn, post-spawn, and they can spawn all in a 4 football field radius.
Yeah.
Why leave, right?
Why use the energy to go up further?
Yeah, exactly. So we'll sit on those areas and just work them over. And it used to work a lot better this year. Man, this year's different. I don't know how much of it is my fault. I like to think a lot of it is, so it's different in the fact that we've never seen the type of pressure that we have on the water this year, ever. In 10 years of doing this, typically middle of February like this, you might see on a Saturday, you might see 15, 20 boats. And I mean, like, it's the first 70-degree Saturday of the year, you get 15, 20 boats.
Yeah.
This year, we saw 100.
No way.
Wow.
I'm guesstimating that number, but at Hausman Boat Ramp on the first warm Saturday of the year, when I launched my boat at 10 a.m., I counted 47 trailers in that parking lot.
Dude.
47.
Everybody
insane.
wants to catch a walleye.
Yeah.
That's insane.
And
That's
so
wild.
The reason I say I don't know how much of it is my fault, I've been posting on Facebook every day. My
Yeah.
Facebook is monetized, so I get paid to post, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to post. And I did a few fishing reports, and I knew I was getting some views because it's monetized, right? So it's like, well, I know I have some reach. I did not expect any of those posts to blow up like they did.
Yeah.
And I had a couple that
They went viral or something.
I don't know what you consider viral, but I had a couple that went for 35 to 75,000 views.
Yeah, that's pretty viral.
It was like, oh, that's not what I wanted
Say,
to
for this
see.
area, that's a lot of
Yeah,
eyes.
for a
Yeah.
specific.
That's the city of Fayetteville. going,
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Fishing.
And that's on one post, and I'm doing it every day.
yeah.
That's unreal.
And so,
So it might be your fault,
it-
partially at least.
so when we caught that 12-pounder, I posted about it as any good guide would do.
Yeah,
because-
sure.
And I told my clients, I was like, guys, this is going to book the rest of my season.
Yeah.
So this one fish is going to make me $15,000.
Yeah, you're like knuckle bumping all around.
Yeah, no joke.
Beers on me today, boys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for one, I mean, this client that caught the fish, he's fished all over North America for walleye.
Okay.
He's gone to Canada 15 or 20 times. Every stereotypical walleye lake that there is, he's been to it.
Okay.
And he's hired guides at all of them. And he looked at me and he's like, dude, this is my personal best.
Wow.
I was like, no way.
That's awesome.
Like, you've been to Canada like 20 times.
Yeah,
You're telling
dude.
me that we just broke your personal best here? He's
that
like,
is so cool.
he's like, by probably 1.5 pounds, we broke my personal best.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I posted it and we caught it on a Saturday. There was, I think, 2 boats around when we caught it. And it's a fairly community hole. I mean, it's a well-known spot to a point.
Mm-hmm.
I posted it, and I knew it was going to do well because it's 12-pound walleye out of
Yeah.
Arkansas, right? Like, it doesn't take a whole lot to know. Yeah, people are going to see this.
Yeah, they're gonna want to do that.
The next day, so Sunday, there was like 45 boats in the parking lot.
Wow.
And so, like, I pull in and, like, as I'm coming down and I see the boat ramp, I'm like, oh crap,
Yeah.
I screwed up.
Yeah.
Like, that's not good.
That definitely is, because like you see even just like in the few groups that I'm in on Facebook or the few people I follow, it very much is like people kind of wait until the first couple of guides like do it first, and then
Yeah.
they're like, okay, it's time. Like,
Yep.
it's walleye season.
Mhm.
That's what I'm booking now.
Yep. And it's crazy. I mean, I'm humbled and blown away by the fact that a 26-year-old kid that fishes for a living can get people to book a trip and pay $500 a day to come fish with him. And all it takes is one Facebook post.
Yeah.
And
That's awesome.
so April will start to transition to smallmouth. It'll take 3 or 4 smallmouth posts, and everybody will be calling me for smallmouth trip.
Yeah.
And I am blown away at, like, I don't know. It's mind boggling to me.
That's the beauty of social media. I mean, there's obviously good and bad to it, but it definitely can be helpful, and it gets people excited to go do it when they see someone pull in like an
Mhm.
18-inch smallmouth. It's like, oh my gosh, yeah, that's exactly what I want to do this weekend.
Yeah.
Weather's nice. I can wet wade. I'm gonna
Yeah.
go get in
Oh,
that
yeah.
water, and it totally makes sense. So what would you say like walleye season is then? Kind of, you just mentioned you transition in April
Mhm.
to smallmouth. What would you say is that season?
So I would say for the average person to be successful, February 15th is kind of, I mean, middle of February, right? And it's
okay.
all weather dependent because you're looking for that water temperature.
And you're talking like Ozarks specific.
Yeah, Ozark specific.
Okay.
Yep. I would say as far north. I'm not super familiar with Lake of the Ozarks, but I would say kind of that region down to Greer's Ferry
Okay.
and anywhere in there.
Pretty much any lake that has a river
Yeah.
coming into it where walleye can spawn.
Yeah, Stockton's that way. Stockton's are really big. It's a small lake, but it's a well-known Ozark walleye fishery. As far as numbers goes, I don't think they put up that many big fish, but they put up a lot of numbers.
Okay.
So any of those lakes in there, I would say middle of February through the middle of April.
Okay. Got it.
Now, if you are a better than average or dedicated fisherman, you can start that in January and you can run that to the end of April when they're up in the river.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say for the average person to go out and have success and enough success where they want to come back and do it again,
Right.
that middle of February to middle of April.
Okay.
And with them moving up in the river, do you, I guess, I know spots for fishing always matter. I mean,
Yes.
I know how to fish, not a dummy. But does that mean any rivers that have walleye in them that connect to lakes, you could potentially show up at, let's say, March 1st and catch walleye?
Mhm.
Or is that like they are slowly moving their way up? I guess I'm trying to gauge, can you show up at a river where you know there's going to be walleye middle of February and pretty much catch fish?
Yes, you can.
Okay.
And here, let me specify that question.
That'd be helpful. I didn't know how to ask it.
No, that's a good question.
I don't fish for many walleye.
Yeah,
so.
no, you're good.
We just asked the questions. You
Yeah,
tell us
give
what
us
you
the
know.
answers.
Perfect. So I would say in the middle of February, anybody can show up and find walleye to catch.
If they can catch them or not.
Yes.
Is the question.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I've been guiding for 10 years.
Mhm.
I've only been walleye guiding for 7. And I make that specification because I took the first 3 years of my career to dial them in. When there's a bajillion walleye up the river, any dummy with a floating bathtub and a trolling motor can go catch a walleye.
Yeah.
Like it's not that hard.
Mhm.
But when you have a tough day like we did today, where there's a lot of pressure on them, the weather conditions are not great. You've got, we started out this morning with high sunny. I mean, the sun was up there, no clouds in the sky. By the time we ended, the air temperature dropped 15 degrees. Wind had picked up to 20, just of 27. It was tough.
Yeah.
And we still put fish in the boat. It was tough, but we made it happen.
When you say tough and you talk, are you saying tough in terms of numbers? And then the second part of that question would be like, what's a tough day? What's a good day?
So, great question. Tough as in numbers, yes.
Okay.
A good day for me. Let me see how to answer this properly because I don't want somebody to listen to this podcast and be like, oh, he said we can, you know what I mean?
Yeah. We catch 100 fish in a day,
exactly.
baby.
So let me put it this way to you. My best day last year, we caught 66 keeper walleye. Now to preface that, we had 2 clients in the boat. They were both experienced walleye fishermen.
Yeah.
They picked it up really quickly. All the conditions were right. We did really, really well.
Yeah. It's a great day.
That's not including short fish. That's not including white bass, trout, like bycatches, right? That's just keeper walleye. Our biggest fish that day went just shy of 9 pounds. But I would say our average day for last year was probably 30 fish,
Yeah.
30 walleye.
Yeah.
Probably,
day.
22 keepers, somewhere in that ballpark. I would say a tough day was probably 14 or 15.
Yeah.
And I think that's a pretty realistic, we're seeing that same trend this year. This year I'm actually keeping track of weather conditions, how many fish we caught that day, how long we were out, how many clients I had. So to try to have a really, really good idea of, like right now we're averaging 3 fish per hour is over the last 2 weeks what it's worked out to be.
Yeah.
And I think that's a realistic, I can look at anybody and say, hey, here's what we're averaging. So 2 fish an hour is not bad. 3 fish an hour is on target. 4 fish an hour is pretty good day.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
That's helpful to know. Just even as someone who is like reaching out to a guide and maybe it's their first time, they're like, what am I paying for? How much am I going to catch?
Yeah.
Like, are we going to just like wait for one really big fish? Are we going to catch them all day? So that's kind of helpful to kind of break it down like that.
Yeah. So on that, do you care if I give a couple of red flags for hiring a guide?
No, that'd be great.
Okay, so I have a couple of things after doing this that I've kind of figured out. Like, there's questions that I wish clients would ask me on the phone when they're booking it.
That's just helpful.
Yeah,
Whether it be a text message or a phone call, there are questions that I wish somebody would ask me before they book the trip.
Love it. Let's hear it.
So, what do you provide as the biggest one? Because I'm amazed how many people show up and they're like, oh, I have to have a fishing license? Yes, you have to have a fishing license. You're fishing.
I can't buy one for you.
Well, so, and to be completely fair, if you go to most saltwater states, so where there's a coastline, your charter captain, his captain's license covers your fishing license in that boat.
Oh, okay.
So there are several states where, so it's like, it's a safe assumption, but I forget as a guide because I'm like, no, duh, you gotta have, right? Like,
Yeah.
to me, it's common knowledge.
Yeah, no ocean around here.
Yeah, exactly. So I forget to mention that. So, what do you provide?
Yeah.
And then, share honest expectations with your guide and honest goals. And I will ask that question, but I'm amazed how many people will tell me over the phone, you know, man, as long as we catch a couple of walleye, I'm really just here to learn. Well, great. I love it.
Yeah.
You know what that tells me as the guide? He doesn't care about numbers. He wants to learn. He probably has a boat in his own garage, doesn't know how to walleye fish, wants to hire me to teach him.
Yeah.
So you know what I'm going to do and how I'm going to prep my boat the night before? I'm going to prep it with like 15 different ways to walleye fish. I'm going to show up at the boat ramp with 4 different rods rigged up. All right, dude, let's go. In an hour in, he's going to go, well, we've only caught 1 fish. Well, yeah, but on the phone. And they're like, well, yeah, but I mean, we still want to catch a bunch of
Yeah.
Why didn't you tell me that to start with?
Not what you said, buddy.
Exactly. So being honest with your guide up front and then your guide's response to that. Because I know a lot of guides that if you're honest with them up front, they'll be like, that's not the way we fish for them. Listen, if your guide tells you that's not the way we do it and you want to learn a new technique, you probably shouldn't hire that guide, right? Because you're not going to be happy because what you want to do is go learn a new technique.
Right.
Well, if that guide straight up tells you, I don't do that, why would you hire him?
Yeah.
I'm amazed how many people will still hire a guide. I've got a really good buddy of mine who's a full-time crappie and walleye guide, and they do a bunch of trolling. And he gets people that troll him, hey, do you troll for walleye? Yes, we do. Well, I don't really want to catch them that way. Can we do something else? Well, if they're biting on something else, yeah, I mean, we can try, but my main way of catching them is trolling.
Yeah.
Okay, no problem. Well, they go get in the boat, and the guide's like, hey, dude, we haven't been able to really catch them on anything but trolling, so we're going to troll today. And the client's pissed off 20 minutes into it.
Oh, man. Yeah, that's not what you want.
Well, your guide told you, so like that should be a red flag, and I'm amazed at how many people just, that sails right over top their head, and they go, I'm going to hire a guide.
Yeah.
That's awesome, dude. But when your guide tells you that, like, be honest with your guide, be upfront. And this is my biggest pet peeve. And I have caught guides on this, other guides. So if you ask, whenever I hire a guide, whenever I'm traveling and I hire a guide, which I highly recommend you do, because even as a full-time guide on the water 280 days a year, I still can learn something from other guides when I go somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely.
I will ask them, hey, are we fishing with like a treble hook bait, a hard plastic style bait? Yes, we are. Okay, great. Do you have extra treble hooks in the boat? You know how many treble hooks I break in a day? It's ungodly. Like these stock treble hooks that come on baits that you go buy, like you pull the bait out of the box.
Yeah.
Within an hour, you're probably going to break that hook.
Really?
Oh, yeah. And if you don't break it, it's going to be so freaking dull that I would let you put it on my fingertip and pull as hard as you can. You're not putting that sucker in my finger.
Wow.
And that's not an exaggeration. Like my boat's in your driveway. I can go out there to my boat right now, and I got a whole pile in the corner of the boat.
Is that specific to walleye? Like, are they tearing it up, or is it the lure? What is making it that dull and that broken?
Mostly it's so like with a crankbait, for instance, it's designed to drag along the bottom.
Yeah.
Well, you drag something along the bottom long enough in the Ozarks, well, we're covered in rocks.
Yeah.
Like you got
It'll
sand.
be dull quick.
Yeah, you got sand, rock, mud. You drag something through that long enough, it's going to be dull quick. And so I'm amazed at how many guides I have hired, and I'll ask them, do you have extra treble hooks in the boat? And first thing they do is go, you're a freaking guide, aren't you?
Yeah.
Just nobody else asked that
You're
question.
not new to this.
Yeah. But if they say no, they don't, I straight up won't hire them. Because if you don't have something as basic as extra treble hooks, there's probably a lot of other things that you don't have.
Yeah.
The other thing that I will ask guides is, when was the last time you checked the expiration date on your fire extinguisher? Because we're all legally, to my knowledge, all 50 states, or at least the lower 48,
Yeah.
all require you have a fire extinguisher on board
That's not expired.
that's not expired.
Interesting. I would have never thought to ask that. And do fires happen a lot on the water or like
No, the reason that I asked
I'm
that,
floating in fire
yeah,
extinguisher.
right,
we're in
Yeah.
water?
They happen fairly commonly, but not all the time. The reason I asked that question and the answer is so important to me is because it shows me the preparedness of that guide.
Gotcha.
And when he looks at me or on the phone, he tells me, "Man, I don't know,"
Yeah.
because that's going to catch him off guard. I guarantee it.
Yeah.
He's like, "I don't know."
I bought that thing 20 years ago.
Exactly. And that tells me right there, he does not care about the little things. And if his fire extinguisher is expired, I bet you his life jackets are expired too. That's something most people don't know. Life jackets have an expiration date.
Yeah, I didn't know that either.
Mhm.
That is one I knew.
Did you know
And
that?
only because I learned within the last year that car seats for children also
Yes, they do.
expire.
Yep,
Oh, wow.
absolutely.
So-
Yeah, I learned that one.
So-
Yeah. Yep.
Car seats and life jackets, man.
And it's fire extinguishers.
Fire
And
extinguishers.
fire extinguishers. So those are the little things that, if that guide can tell me, like I buy a new fire extinguisher every year. And I do that to make sure I'm always ready, right?
How long does a fire extinguisher last?
I think it's 3 years.
Wow.
But they're
thought
cheap.
I thought it would be longer than that.
No.
Good to
And so I buy a new one every year. They're like $45, man.
Yeah.
Like a full-time guide should be able to afford a new fire extinguisher
not
every
crazy.
year. So if your guide can look at you and go, I'm not sure the expiration date, but I buy a new one every January to make sure that we're always ready, I guarantee you he's gonna have extra line in the like. That dude's got his trap together.
He's on it.
Yeah. So those are kind of I was a little long-winded in those examples, but those are the ones that I feel like are really, really important to ask any guide anywhere in the lower 48.
Yeah.
And if they have a prepared answer for you, you're probably going to have a really great trip.
Yeah, got it. So it's ask about the fire extinguisher.
Yep.
It's ask if they have extra treble hooks.
Yep.
Communicate openly, like your expectations
And goals.
and goals.
And goals, yep.
And
I think those are the three.
those are the big ones.
Yeah, those are the big
and
ones.
it's mainly just to one, to communicate. That's important in, I mean, any relationship,
Right.
Or time that you're going to spend with someone. But then two, to see like, is this the type of guide that I want to hire?
Exactly.
Is this the
Yeah.
right person who's going to do what I need them or want them to do?
Yep,
What I'm paying
exactly.
them for.
And there's a lot of times, I don't know how to spider rig for crappie. I have no idea how.
Yeah.
I mean, I know the general idea,
Mhm.
but I don't know how to do that.
Right.
But I'll still run a few crappie trips. I don't run a bunch, but I run a few. I like for repeat clients and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I have people call me and they're like, "Hey, I'd like to learn to crappie fish." Well,
Yeah.
I know one way to do it.
Yeah.
And they get in the boat and they're like, "Man, I want to learn to spider rig today." Dude, I don't even have enough rods in the boat to spider rig.
Yeah.
And they came on my boat expecting to learn to spider rig today.
Yeah.
So those are the kind of things like I'm a phenomenal guide, and that sounds kind of cocky, but like this is what I do for a living.
Yeah.
But that does not mean that I'm the right guide for every instance, for every person.
Yeah.
And I would rather be able to look at somebody and say, "Hey, man, I'm not your guide for that, but I got somebody."
Right. Yeah. And that's more genuine and honest. I feel like people appreciate that. I know I would.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I'm like, even when I think about, so I'm a big fly fisherman and I think about going over to the white and I'm like, okay, well, who do I want to fish? Who have I talked to? Who do I know what their style is? And then like I narrow it down to like the person who I know specializes in that one thing before I even pick up the phone and call, just because I would rather someone tell me like, this is my thing. This is what I do. Like, I want to learn from that guy who that's his thing.
100%.
I mean, it's not that I don't want to, but like a guy who is a full-time trout guide is not the guy who I want to teach me how to smallmouth fish.
Yeah.
Every time. You know what I mean? Like,
And the bait guide is not who you want to teach you how to fly fish.
Yes.
exactly.
Yep.
So,
Exactly.
Yep.
that's good. So we've covered walleye movement, staging areas, what to expect out of a guide, which I think is really important,
That
especially
is-
talking to a guide.
Yeah, that
which
is-
is something I
that's good.
didn't know we were going to cover today.
I mean, I didn't know it until
And
I
I,
said
and
it.
I
so.
really appreciate it.
Off the rip, man.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to throw you a softball.
Okay.
How do you catch the walleye?
Oh, jig and minnow is my favorite.
Okay.
And if you go look at my Facebook, go back to probably late December, early January, I have a probably 3.5 minute step-by-step how to walleye 101 in the Ozarks.
Okay.
And I break down
This
the
is on your,
rods
this
you
is
need.
on your Facebook?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yep. I break down the rods you need, why you need it, the line you need. I mean, every detail that you would learn hiring me for an 8-hour day, is on my Facebook page.
Yeah.
Good to know.
I make it absolutely open for everybody, down to the jig head that I use, the knots that I use to tie it on, how I fish it. A part of that segment is me on the water showing you on camera how I fish it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I even in that video, I tell you how to like find the spot that you need to go fish that style.
Yeah. You open the book.
Absolutely.
That's awesome.
100%.
And why do you do that? As a guide, you know, some people might hear that and be like, well, dude, that's what people pay for. Why do you give that information out?
So I told you a story before we started recording about the coach CEO that was fishing with me.
Yeah.
He told me a story, and I don't think this is his original story, but the story about the copy repairman for the old office copiers.
Okay. Yeah.
The office repairman can tell you over the phone how to fix that machine and let you do it. Takes him 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
It makes him look like everybody's best friend. You're going to screw it up. You're going to realize, and this is the way it is in walleye fishing, and I've booked a ton of trips this year because they're like, dude, you gave all of the information. And then I saw a week later, and I was on the water the same day as you. I waved at you. I said, hey, man, I'm fishing a jig and minnow just like you.
Yeah.
I got this phone call the other day. He's not going to care that I'm telling the story. And he's like, I mean, I literally saw him on the water. I posted that night how many walleye we caught. He called me 20 minutes after I posted. He's like, you got to be freaking kidding me. I was like, what? What am I kidding you about? I don't know. Like he literally, hello, this Clayton. You got to be freaking kidding me. I don't know. Am I? He's like, you caught that many walleye today? Yeah. He's like, dude, I was a quarter mile away from you. I fished within sight of you.
Mm-hmm.
I caught 4 fish today.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot more to, and I'll say it right now, like there's things that I'm looking for. I'm looking for like on these big staging areas, there's a spot inside of the spot inside of the spot.
Mm-hmm.
And your electronics don't pick them up. I mean, some of these, there's on one of these staging spots, and it's a community hole. Like it's a mile downstream from Houseman Boat Ramp. There's a lodge sticking out of the middle of the river. Everybody knows it. Everybody calls it the stump. It's the walleye stump.
The walleye stump.
Anybody who's fished the White River Arm of Table Rock Lake knows the walleye stump.
They know about the stump.
There is a hard spot on the bottom, and I can't find it. I have the latest electronics, and I cannot find it to drop a pin on it. Every big fish I've caught the last 2 years has come off of this spot. It's the size of the deck of my boat.
Oh, wow.
If you drag your jig and minnow, I know generally where it is. And I have as much money invested in electronics and trolling motor on my boat as I do in the boat itself. And I can't find that spot.
Yeah.
But I know if I can drag a jig over it, we're going to catch fish every freaking time.
And you're out there way more than the average guy.
I'm out there
who's
6 days a week.
So that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I can
Makes
still
sense.
open up to everybody
How to do it.
how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I can still put you in my boat and add value to what I've already given you. And I can feel really good at the end of the day, taking your $500, shaking your hand, smiling at you and going, dude, we had a great day. You told me you learned something. I'm so happy you learned something. Even though there's 25 minutes of how-to videos on my Facebook page telling you the basics. I can add value when you get in my boat.
Love it.
That's good.
So that's why I do it. I want everybody to be successful.
Yeah, right.
And I figured out, the more people that are into walleye fishing, the more people that are talking about me.
Yeah.
So I do it selfishly, but I also do it because I want everybody to have a good day.
Yeah, it kind of goes hand in hand a little bit.
It really does.
So I kind of cut you off, but like, how do you do it? I know you've got videos, but maybe a summary version. What's a jig and minnow like? How are
right, yeah.
kind of the overall?
I guess I did kind of scape on that one, didn't I? I'm sorry.
You're all right, man.
Now I know your spot. So.
Got your spot at least. Now we're gonna get your tactics.
Yeah. So I use a long shank, 3/16 ounce jig. It's a freestyle jig. There's a guy here in town at Hook, Line, and Sinker that pours them. He's the retired basketball coach from Pea Ridge. Everybody calls him Coach. His name's Larry Walker.
Okay.
But he pours these jigs, sells them at Hook, Line, and Sinker. It's a 1X strong Gamakatsu hook. So it's a really, really good hook. Stays sharp all day long.
Okay.
3/16 weight on that. It's my go-to jig head size. A crappie minnow rather than a bass minnow. My theory behind that is if you're sitting at Golden Trail and you're freaking stuffed, your wife walks up with a big old T-bone steak cooked just the way you like it. Goes, honey, here's your favorite cheddar steak. Honey, I love you for that. I appreciate that, but I'm stuffed. I don't want it.
Yeah.
Now, if she walks up to you and goes, I got one bite of honey butter biscuit left. I don't care how full you are. You're going to eat that last bite of honey butter biscuit.
Shove that in the gullet.
Oh, yeah. So a crappie minnow for that same reason.
Okay.
Because there's a ton of bait in this river. The whole lake. No matter where you're fishing on Table Rock, there's a bajillion amount of bait.
And is this a live minnow?
It's a live minnow.
Okay.
I basically Texas rig it. Okay. So I go in through the mouth, out through the gill, spin it around, come up through the belly, and out right behind the skull.
Okay. Yeah. So the hook is up.
Yes, hook is up.
I saw that video the other day
you?
of you doing that, and I like it's hard to hear and picture that, visualize it, but you, like you said, you've got that on your Facebook.
Yep, it's on my Facebook.
Okay.
Yeah. And I tell everybody this first thing in the morning. You will not cast your minnow off if you hook it properly. Now, there's two keys to that. One, hooking it center in the belly so that minnow doesn't run cockeyed. Mm-hmm. Two, making sure that you go in through the mouth and out through the gill without penetrating any skin. Because as soon as you break their jaw, they're going to kick off to the side, and you will pull them off. But as long as you keep them on there straight, I mean, if it's a slow day like it was, I fished the same minnow today for an hour. You tell me any other way you can hook a minnow that'll stay on your hood for an hour.
Yeah.
It ain't happening.
It's not happening.
Not to my knowledge.
Especially with walleye that have teeth.
Yeah.
Like, that's hard to do with a crappie or anything.
Yep.
Walleye, much more so, I would imagine.
Yes. And it's not uncommon. I mean, 1 or 2 times a day, I'll catch 2 or 3 walleye on the same crappie minnow.
Wow.
Throw it out. Longest cast you can make. Braided line is super important here. I do 10 or 12 pound sunline braid.
Okay.
To 8 pound fluorocarbon leader. A lot of people, you asked most of the guides over there, and I don't have an issue with this answer. They're running 4 or 6 pound leader, and that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
But we just boated a 12 pound fish. As a guide, I personally do not want somebody playing a fish of a lifetime on 4 pound line.
Yeah.
I just don't. Can you do it? Probably.
Yeah. But
I don't want to.
Yeah, the risk goes up for sure.
Yeah. So I use 8 pound, 4 to 6 foot of 8 pound fluorocarbon leader.
Okay.
Longest cast you can make, let it sink all the way to the bottom. I cannot stress that enough. It has to be on the bottom for it to work. Once it gets on the bottom, flip that bail over. So you leave an open bail while it's sinking, so it sinks straight down rather than pendulum swinging.
Okay.
Flip that bail over, pick up your slack, point your rod over your offside shoulder, so your opposite shoulder, about a 45-degree angle. You're going to lift your rod. It's a slow, consistent lift, and it's kind of a 1, 2, 3, causes it to lift up and flutter.
Yeah.
And then when you get to the top of that third one, you just drop it. Don't follow it down. Dump your rod tip to it.
Gotcha.
YouTube watchers, you just saw me make really funny moves with my hands.
So if you're starting at 6 o'clock, maybe be.
So
6
you're
o'clock,
gonna
not
straight down.
Sorry, 3 o'clock. Start at 3 o'clock.
Yeah.
You're doing 1, 2, 3 to noon, and then
Yeah.
dipping your rod tip down.
So you never start at 3.
Okay.
So you want to fish your rod tip at about a 45. Each time I lift those 3 movements, I probably only pick up 8 inches of line.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
That's
so
helpful.
it's a really settle movement.
Okay.
Now, there are days where they want it really moved a lot. They're in an aggressive mood. But on average, 8 inches of movement per 3 lift.
Okay.
If you start it right here, I want as much angle on that rod as I can get. The steeper the angle that your line is coming up, the better the sensitivity.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I want the steepest angle I can get while still having room to set the hook. Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay.
Yeah, it makes sense.
You get one of 2 types of bites typically with a walleye. It either feels like an aggressive crappie, and it's just a thump. And I mean, that's it.
Mm-hmm.
And when you feel that thump, the hook set is not this big bass hook set. You're going to miss every one of them. You'll pull it right out of their face. I will take that rod from that 45-degree angle over my offside shoulder, straight up and down, and it's an aggressive crappie set. So I'm coming straight up over my head with it. Once I get it there, I'm going to reel down. If you drop slack to it, you're going to lose the fish. So keep tension.
Yep.
Reel down to it. Fight it with your rod at about a 45.
So for you trout fishermen on a fly rod, it's a trout set.
It's an aggressive trout set.
Okay. But the same idea.
Same concept. Yeah.
Okay.
Same exact. If you were midge fishing, bobber fishing, whatever you want to call it. I'm a trout guide, but I still call it bobber fishing.
That's what it is.
It is.
It's okay. You're in good company here.
I made a video. I have yet to post it. I probably should, but I'm just making it. It's kind of a Hank Parker style video. If you've seen his YouTube, I used a little red and white bobber to midge fish on the beaver tail waters one day.
And I'm sure it worked.
It did.
I
I caught
better
so many
believe it.
freaking trout.
Oh man.
So I just did it to poke fun.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But anyways, if you were using 6X tippet, you'd break it off. It's that aggressive.
Okay.
If you're using 5X, you'd probably be about right.
Okay.
So I mean, it's an aggressive set,
yeah.
but that same nymphing style, just straight up. The other bite that you'll feel is it just gets mushy. And what they do, especially this time of year, they'll just swim up to it, mouth it for a minute, and they'll literally, I mean, if you had underwater, there's YouTube videos of walleye literally just putting it in their mouth and just rolling it around, just mouthing that minnow.
Munching it a little
Yeah.
bit.
They'll finally get it in. You'll lift 2 or 3 times, and you're like, well, it feels like maybe there's grass or a leaf. Bull crap, you better freaking rear back and punch him, because that's a walleye every time.
Really?
Yes.
It's like a
every time.
lazy.
And they
take.
won't move anywhere.
Huh.
They will not swim off with it
Yeah.
like a bass will. You know, a bass picks up a football jig, he takes off swimming. He'll be
Oh, yeah,
halfway
you-
across the lake by the time you realize he's got it in his mouth.
Yeah, you know it's a fish.
Yeah. Walleye picks it up off the bottom like that. He's just going to sit there with it.
Okay, so that makes sense because I don't catch many walleye, but a couple years ago I was like, I want to try and target walleye with a fly rod.
Okay.
So I'm going to go out there. I'm throwing. It's a minnow pattern, but it was a saltwater.
Probably a saltwater
deceiver.
cloud. Oh, okay,
it was
okay.
A deceiver minnow, and in the White River, 8-weight sink tip,
Yep.
fly rod, all that. We caught a bunch of fish.
Yeah.
I caught my I guess best walleye because I've fished in Canada and all that as a kid.
Okay.
And low, slow swim, all of that. Thought I got hung up on a log that it had caught like in the middle of it.
Yep.
And you know, if you catch something you can pull it out of the water. Maybe it's a stick, not a true log. You can pull it, but it's so slow because you're pulling it
Yeah.
through the water and it's waving and shaking and all
Yeah.
that.
Yep.
And didn't realize it till it came to the surface that I had a fish on it.
Yep.
So it made the fight was not all that exciting.
Yeah, you're like,
They're really
I was like,
not.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, there's
Heavy.
a fish.
Yep.
And so that I get the feel. Not that helps anybody listening, but yeah, mushy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mushy's, and I use the term mushy because that's the term that I like most clients when they finally get that concept down. And I call it the light bulb moment, right? They finally have that like, oh crap, that's what you're talking. I got it now.
Yeah.
They have that light bulb moment. And they look at me and go, dude, that was so freaking mushy. So I've just kind of adopted the term mushy.
Yeah. And then they probably realize like how many other fish
They've missed.
they missed that morning where they're like,
Yes.
oh, I felt that earlier. And
Yep.
I thought that was something else.
So I figure you're gonna miss on average. Now this isn't every fisherman, but the average fisherman misses their first 7 or 8 bites in the morning.
For
So-
like when they're not dialed in. Or is that you're saying like clients in the boat or even like you when you got there, you're going to miss
Clients in
the
the
first
boat.
couple?
On an off day, I'll miss. Let's say I get 20 bites in a day, I'll miss 3 or 4
Okay.
on an off day.
So it's mostly, you're talking kind of clients.
Yeah. And to be completely fair, so I don't sound like a cocky jerk, I fish 6 days a week.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I practically sleep walleye. Like
Yeah.
it's all I do this time of year.
Everyone's
So,
expecting you to have a much higher.
Yeah,
count.
like I'm not God's gift to walleye fishing. I'm not the best walleye fisherman out there. I figured it up 2 weeks ago. I spent 46 hours on the water in 5 days.
Dang.
46 hours. At that point, even a freaking moron would figure it out, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not God's gift to guiding at all. I just spend too much time doing it.
You're out there enough.
Yeah. So it's a lot of fun though. I mean, it's a fish that will hold your attention for 46 hours a week.
Give me a few like just good stories or amusing anecdotes of walleye fishing or best memories, anything like that. That's like, this is walleye fishing and I love it. Or I hate it sometimes.
I would say there's a love-hate to walleye fishing. And I think that's what makes it so appealing is, we're horribly blessed in the Ozarks. You can, in the summertime, anybody can go pitch up a fishing rod and go catch a smallmouth.
Mhm.
You just can.
Yeah.
I don't care if you've never done it before. You can go catch a smallmouth.
Right.
Now, to target a big one, there's some knowledge base needed there. I've been doing this 7 years, and I still have days where I suck. I still have days where I'm like, I got 5 fish today. This freaking sucked.
Yeah.
But that's what keeps me coming back, right?
Right.
So there's a lot of days where it really is a love-hate relationship. I'll tell you one on today's line, though, because I'm still flabbergasted, to be completely honest. We're 6 hours into an 8-hour trip. So by this point, most people have it figured out, right?
Yeah.
And these guys just could not deal with it. I mean, it was one of those days on the water. And those happen every now and then. And to be fair to them, it was a slow bite. And it's tough to learn something new. You know, when you only get 15 bites in a day, and I'm telling you the average person's going to miss their first 6 or 7,
Yeah.
that's pretty tough.
Yeah, that is.
That's a hard day fishing.
Yeah, it is.
And does it get harder with the pressure? Like
Yes.
you've been talking about, they get smarter. Those fish kind of know what
Yes.
to avoid.
100%.
Okay, so that might feed into it too.
Yes.
Okay.
So, anyways, client snatches his jig and minnow, which is that's gonna happen. You're gonna snag him. You're fishing the bottom. And so, kind of my routine is I hand him my rod because I'm fishing with them because they're trying to keep a limit, right? So there's 4 per person over 18 inches. So the more people you got fishing, better chance you got to put a limit in the boat. So I typically fish with them. So I hand him my rod. I say, you fish this one while I get you reset up. So we break off the jig. I get him re-tied up, rebaited. I hand him his rod. As he hands me my rod, he picks up the slack that was in it and hands it to me. As it hits my hand, I'm like, you gotta be freaking kidding me. I take a half a step forward. I swing the hook to set it. I did a 4-pound walleye.
Oh, man.
And that fish had that hook 2/3 of the way down his face.
He just completely missed it.
He swallowed it.
He
completely.
freaking, I mean, I had to get needle nose out to get that jig out of his face. He probably had that jig in his mouth for 45 seconds.
Yeah. Oh,
That
man.
client was literally sitting there doing
like-
this number,
You get stuck.
moving it, and he's like, man, I think you're pulling through grass. And I literally looked at him. I was like, I'd set the hook. He's like, no, this is grass.
Like, well, okay.
So there's days like that where you sit there and you're like, I don't know if I should be. Like, that's a funny story, but also, man, that just beats the day we had, right?
Yeah.
But then we have days, like I said, last year our best day was 66 keeper walleye. And those are the days where you just want to sit back. You wish you had a drone flying over you the whole day.
Mm-hmm.
Just like, because you're sitting there going, man, this is not me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm not this good of a guy. I know this is not me.
Yeah.
This is just awesome. This is my fishery, my home water, the place I take pride in, showing off for out-of-towners. We're catching fish after fish after fish. They fished really clean that day. I mean, we didn't hardly miss any. And we just waylaid them. It was like, man, this is... Like, we literally... It's supposed to be an 8-hour trip. I think we fished 13 and a half hours that day.
As you should.
Yeah, I mean,
You're just on it.
It was one of those deals. I looked at him, I was like, guys, it's 8 hours. And they were like, how much more to fish till dark?
Yeah.
I was like, let me text my wife real quick and figure out how much more you're going to have to pay me to make that okay.
There you go. Gonna have to pay for a spa day
Yeah,
for the
yeah.
wife, shopping spree, all that
I
stuff.
was like, it's going to cost you at least dinner for my wife because
Yeah.
that's what it's going to take for me not to be in trouble.
Yep. Absolutely.
But, I mean, I try not to tell too many guide stories because I have a lot of repeat clients, and not that I would ever tell a story that would really hurt their feelings or anything.
Yeah.
And walleye fishing is really kind of like, it's a fairly boring thing. Like, it's a challenge, but smallmouth fishing is the thing that, when you're in the drift boat drifting, that's when you see the cool stuff, right?
Mhm.
Like, that's the adventure.
Yeah.
walleye fishing, you're sitting in the middle of the lake, even though it's a river, but shoot, 150 yards wide.
Yeah.
Like, you're sitting in the middle, fishing on a hump in 10 foot of water. You got a channel on one side of you, a channel on the other. The most exciting thing you might see is turkeys fly across the river.
Yeah.
Which is super cool.
That is cool.
But it doesn't make it very. There's the story.
Right. It's like,
right? Like,
that's not the fishing that we're talking about.
Yeah. So it's kind of tough to tell walleye stories just because they don't typically fight super hard. Even that 12-pounder that we caught, the fight lasted 30 seconds. From the time he set the hook to the time we had it in the net was maybe 30 seconds. There's not a whole lot of story to tell there, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's just,
you're pretty much like pulling them up off the bottom.
yeah. They're kind of, I would say that the most common fish that people fish for that I could make it make sense, it's kind of like catfish. You catch a big catfish, you're going to get a little bit of a fight, but it's these big, powerful head shapes. Like, it's not like a largemouth that's going to jump 4 times. And
Yeah.
like, it's just not. Like, you're going to get 5 or 6 really powerful head shapes. He might dog you, run straight down for 3 or 4 seconds. And then he's pretty much going to come to the top.
Yeah.
He's going to see the boat. We're in 12-foot visibility. Well, I didn't see that fish about 12 foot deep. He's going to see the boat. He's going to make one final run that's going to pull drag for 1.5, 2 seconds. And then he's pretty much in the net.
Yeah.
And that is, that's the biggest walleye we've ever caught. And that was the fight.
Yeah.
And I'm just not that good of a storyteller to make that an exciting
No.
story.
I don't know if anyone is, man. That's yeah. It's a unique fish for sure, and
It is.
And having caught a few, I understand. It's like, yeah, it's fun. They're cool. They're great to eat.
Oh,
Like,
phenomenal.
the fish, like the meat on it is so clean, and the cheek that you can take out, that in itself is all unique. But something I wanted to ask you, and we can end on this kind of
Okay.
maybe it's a softball, maybe it's not. You talked about the pressure. You talked about, over the last couple of years, you've seen this year, you've seen so many more boats even than last year.
Right.
And 2 years before that. What do you think about like the future of walleye fishing? Is that are those sustainable numbers? Or are there things that people should be thinking about or doing to help keep the walleye fisheries intact?
That is a phenomenal question. And it's not a simple answer.
Tell me why.
So, a couple of reasons. One, the science behind how walleye spawn. And I got to kind of nerd out for a minute. So, bear with me here as we nerd out on walleye, right?
Okay.
So, the way that a walleye spawns, the female will run up to the shoal or the pea gravel or whatever, right? In the current. She will get up there and puts off a hormone that lets the 8 to 12 male fish around her know, okay, Jim, do your thing. So they will push her around, roll her, push on her belly to have her deposit the eggs. They will then fertilize the eggs, fertilize the water around the eggs, in
Right.
turn fertilizing the eggs. Those eggs will drift down, land in the bottom. They have to have 48 hours of current, consistent current to keep oxygen going through those eggs for them to be viable. Okay.
So if they stop and they stop moving, they're not going to get fresh oxygen coming into the egg.
If the current stops moving over top of them.
Okay.
So on the beaver tailwaters, if Beaver Dam stops generating, every egg that was spawned that day, dead. Done for. 0 chance of it surviving. 0. That's a scientific answer. That's 0% survivability.
Wow.
On the flip side of that, let's take the headwaters of Beaver Lake, right? So the headwaters of the White River. That is a free-flowing river into that lake, but it's a very muddy fishery. Those eggs get on the bottom, they get silted over. You got all that dirty water flowing over them.
Right.
As that sediment settles, they're now covered up in sediment. They no longer have oxygen. Even if that egg hatches into fry, according to Michigan and Wisconsin, there's only about 10% survivability of 10% live from fry to sexual maturity at 17 to 20 inches.
Okay.
Now, on the flip side of that, to make those numbers not so intimidating, a 20-inch female, according to Wisconsin DNR, will have roughly 50,000 eggs.
Wow.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
So that 12-pound female that we released last week, guesstimating 350, 400,000 eggs.
Wow. That's insane.
Yeah. So I mean, that's a lot of eggs there.
Yeah.
But let's say that female, that 12-pound female, deposited her eggs, and 6 hours later they turn the generator off for 12 hours. Those eggs are not going to survive.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So Arkansas and Missouri Department of Conservation, Game and Fish, they will come down and shock from Hausman. They'll launch their boat at Hausman, and they will shock all the, they'll catch brooder females. They'll take them back to the lab or the hatchery or whatever, artificially spawn them in the lab, and then at finger length, so at roughly 3 inches, they will restock those. And here's where it gets weird, right? So that's part of it, where whether a fisherman is conservation minded or not, whether they release those big females or not, it's, in my mind, every female that's released is one more that has the chance to spawn.
Mm-hmm.
And we have the chance, like right now, they haven't shut the dam off for 3 days. So all those fish that have spawned in the last 3 days, there's a solid chance that those eggs will make it.
Yeah.
So every female that I've released in the last 3 days, there's a pretty solid chance that those eggs made it, right?
Yeah.
Or at least 10% of them.
Yeah, they've got a fighting chance.
Yeah. So, and I only know these numbers. I don't know the most recent numbers. I think it was 2019 was the most recent numbers. Arkansas Game and Fish only released 300,000 walleye, which at first it's like, oh, wow, that's a lot of fingerlings.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it is, until you think that that's only one 12-pound female.
Mm-hmm.
So where the heck did all those others go?
Yeah, that's true.
Where?
Yeah.
And I don't know the answer to that.
Hmm.
Now, Missouri also stocks, but Beaver Lake, they just got stocked. I think it was 2020. And I think they stocked them at the south end of the lake, and then they stocked them at Prairie Creek. And I think they stocked them, and don't quote me on these numbers, but I think it was like 300,000 or 250, 300,000 there as well.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But if we're going off these numbers of even a 20-inch female has 50,000 eggs, I know how, I don't know the exact number, but they took about 70 mature females.
Yeah.
26-inch plus females. Well, let's say for the sake of math, they're 100,000 eggs apiece, which we know they're more.
Yeah.
That's still a lot of unaccounted for walleye.
Yeah, that is the numbers don't add up.
Right. So is it sustainable? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I like to think it is.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've seen the fishery improve, but I've also never seen pressure like this.
Yeah.
I don't know what Game and Fish is going to do to counteract that. Right now, to be completely honest with you, and Game and Fish may get a little butthurt for me saying this. If I'm that popular, I don't know. They may not even hear me say this. They may not care. I don't know.
You never know.
I don't think they are proactive enough in this, because when I saw one of the biologists out there, and I'm not going to name him because it's not going to be beneficial. But I talked to one of the biologists, and I asked him, I was like, hey man, I'm seeing more boats than ever.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, yeah, we're not worried about it. Wait a second, what?
Like kind of instantly, he was
He
like,
just brushed it off.
yeah, no big deal.
He's like, yeah, it doesn't matter. I was like, bro, I've been here for 10 years, which I know there's people longer than that. But I've never seen days in the end of February be this tough.
Yeah.
I've never seen, I boated 8 walleye today. 3 of those had been caught recently and had holes in their mouth. And these were 17-inch fish. They'd never ran up the river before. So these aren't holes from last year. They'd been caught in the last week probably. And one of them still had a painted jig head in its mouth. So out of the 8, 50% of those had been caught probably in the last week. And the only reason they were back in the river is because they were short. So I personally am concerned, not freaking out by any means, because I think we have the we've got the ability to kind of play catch up.
Yeah.
You know, in 5 years, if we go, oh crap, we screwed up, we should have been paying better attention.
Right.
We have the ability to go, all right, you know what, we're going to go catch 150, and we're going to put every one of those fry back in here.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to take 3 years. So now we're 8 years out.
Yeah.
But we
be okay.
fixed the issue.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's sustainable in that source, but it's maybe not sustainable in the fact that if we don't get more people, I've gotten more hate over releasing that 12-pound walleye. I mean, I've gotten messages, I've got phone calls, I've gotten 2 a.m. drunk texts from people from Canada. I can't believe you freaking put that fish back. That would have been good. I'd have eaten that fish and got her up with you. What the heck were you thinking? I mean, cussed out.
Yeah.
I bet I've gotten 50 messages. I can't believe that's such a dumb thing to do. What were you thinking? You ruined your client's day. My client voluntarily released that first off.
I didn't make him do it.
Yeah. But I think as long as we have that many people with that mentality, it's a bit of a touchy subject.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I don't know that we have enough information at this point for me to tell you if it is sustainable or not.
Yeah. To say one way or the other.
Yeah.
Well,
So-
I imagine the thing about the Ozarks too is you have people who are going to fight for the smallmouth.
Exactly.
You
Yeah.
have people who are they're going to fight for the trophy trout. You have
Mhm.
people who are going to fight for, they may fight for the largemouth and the striper, and you think kind of your top 4 or 5 Arkansas game fish.
Yep.
And I feel like maybe walleye just falls further down on the list a little bit, and so there
It
is some
does.
level of like that's the fish we eat.
Yep.
So
Exactly. Yeah.
That's the one
as long
we
as we're
keep.
eating them, we're cool.
Yeah.
And it
Yep.
that's just kind of how it's been. So maybe perception needs to change before anything else can happen. But
Yeah.
I know you don't think the Ozarks and you don't immediately think walleye.
Yeah.
And that may be
I don't.
Well, and
maybe part of it.
what's weird in that, and I don't mean to contradict you at all, because I think you're accurate to a point.
Mhm.
In the walleye community, you're starting to hear more and more about Table Rock Lake.
See, that makes sense.
You're starting to hear more and more about those Arkansas boys.
Mm-hmm.
But outside of that walleye community, which is, to be fair, a fairly small community,
Mm-hmm.
you don't hear a
You're
lot
not
about
hearing
it.
about it. Yeah.
Right.
Which is admittedly the community I'm a part of.
Yeah.
Outside of the walleye community.
100%. Yeah. Truthfully. Yeah. And I think about like, even just, this is maybe not the best example, but like, I don't see, maybe you could tell me differently. I don't see walleye groups like coming together on Facebook, and maybe there are some, but I feel like there's like the walleye groups are within like the fishing groups,
Mhm.
and it's kind of like it just happens to be part of it, but it's not like its own thing where, you're wearing an Ozark Smallmouth Alliance, right? Like,
Right, yeah.
You've a hat right now, and like you've got people who are like, they passionately care about
Yes.
the smallmouth, and there's
100%.
like that cult following almost,
Yes.
if you will.
Yep.
And it doesn't quite seem the same, to your point, Kyle, with the walleye.
Yeah, no, I think you're 100% right. On Facebook that I'm aware of, and I would say I'm fairly aware, but Facebook's a big place, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure there's some that I don't know about.
Yeah.
There's really only like 3 or 4 big ones that have, say, 30,000 followers or more.
Okay.
And then there's a few small ones. But I think on my business account, I think I follow like 7 or 8 walleye pages. And what I did was a year ago, I just went through and I searched in the search bar walleye pages.
Mhm.
I just followed all of them.
Yeah.
That had 5,000 followers or more.
Right. And they're not necessarily specific to here, right?
No, these are nationwide.
Yeah.
I would say continent wide, North America wide, because
Okay.
there's a lot of it's not British Columbia. What's the one straight north of Manitoba?
Mm.
A lot of Manitoba folks. That's big walleye country up there,
Gotcha.
and so there's a lot of that. But like I say, I'm starting to bring down more and more clients from British Columbia, from Manitoba, from in really North U.S. Like within an hour or two. A lot of these, I've had 3 or 4 this year that have been like, dude, I think we're going to start coming down here in January and February.
Mm-hmm.
Because, normally we're up there fishing through the ice, and then we go to Canada in June. We can make it to the big lakes up there. We'd make it to the Great Lakes in June and July in an hour and a half. And they're coming down here,
Yeah.
and it's like, man, you're putting up some big fish down there. I had a charter captain from was Lake Erie, I think. Don't quote me on that. But he called me the other day. He's like, dude, I saw your big fish on. I said, what is going on down there? He's like, I didn't know what's going on down there.
Yeah, what the heck, man?
The
So
Ozarks, man.
I talked to him for about an hour. And he's like, what the heck is going on down there? He's
Putting
like,
some growth hormones in the water.
right. And he was like, man, I've had more people bring up Table Rock Lake in the last couple of years. So we're slowly but surely making a name. And I think money drives everything, whether you want to admit it or not, money drives everything. As we get to a point where Arkansas and Missouri starts going, oh man, we're getting some tourist money coming in on walleye.
Yeah.
Well, now you're going to start to see Visit Branson. They reached out to me on Instagram about walleye. And they were like, hey, I think this would benefit Branson. I'm like, absolutely it'd benefit Branson. You guys are right there. You got phenomenal walleye fishing right there.
Yeah.
I'm on the other end of the lake. Doesn't do me any good.
Right.
But it do you guys a lot of good.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I think as we see more small city chamber of commerce going, boy, wait a second. Boy, our travel numbers are up in January, February. What is going on? And they start to correlate that to, hey, by December, I had all of my February dates booked, most of my March dates booked. I don't have an open. I'm running 6 days a week now through the middle of April. And the majority, probably 85% of my clients, 85%, are from out of state. So they're helping our local economy.
Right.
But until those chamber of commerce start to notice that, we're not going to catch the attention that we need to get that cult-like following that smallmouth has.
Yeah, that makes sense. We'll have to get you back on maybe later this year and talk maybe some smallmouth because I know you're into that
sure.
too. But can't thank you enough for coming on and enjoyed getting to hang out with you.
Yeah.
And hope you folks listening enjoyed.